All right, here my buddy Ollie. As you can see, he is very, very calm in the kennel, and that's really the name of the game. This is his roadmap to success, but we're going to offshoot a little bit of the video that's above, which is a kennel training video. So I'm going to go through the steps on that one first, so this is going to be a long video, so that way you have it right at the beginning. So the video above, we want to practice that ritual. We're to the point now where we're already closing the door. Now, the mistake the guardian was doing is she's closing the door and when he's calm, then she would leave and go to dinner or grab a coffee or whatever it is. Well, then the dog starts freaking out. And the whole point of this is we want the dog to practice being in the kennel completely calm. So what I want the guardian to do is practice having him in the kennel with the door closed, with her sitting in the chair 3 feet away from it, demonstrating that just because you're in the kennel and the door closes does not represent that I'm always leaving, which in the past 100% of the time pretty much does. So we want to get to the point where we want to be very progressive about lengthening this out. So the first couple of times he laid down, then I was having her open the door and let him out. But now we're starting to achieve, having me a little bit longer, and he's content because he knows the guardian is here. So what I would do is keep on progressively elongating this, and don't push too far. Don't push until he freaks out. That's another mistake that people make. So at this point, he's been in here for about maybe 2 minutes, 3 minutes. We were talking, and I decided to do the roadmap to success because we're going to make this. So this is going to be 15 or 20 minutes of him in here. This is probably too long to do, but because you're here, and we just have this positive association, it's okay. Now, what we want to do is keep on doing this until he can be in the kennel, laying down without any protesting, while you guys are watching TV and hanging out at the desk and do all the rest of the stuff, until you can have him in here for like 15 minutes. Well, I don't want to put an arbitrary time on it. When it comes to dog behavior, once they can achieve 2 hours, you don't have to practice beyond that. But not all dogs have to get up to 2 hours. So he might only have to practice being in here for like 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15, whatever it is. So once he can be in here for like 15 minutes consistently laying down, relaxed, on his own accord, and we're not telling him to go in here. And when he went in there, we just threw the treat, he went in, we closed, and he laid down. We closed the door this time, and this time he didn't get up at all. So eventually when he gets to the point where you're going to be up here with like 15 minutes of him being relaxed, then we want to start helping him practice being in the kennel calm without the human in line of sight. Right now, the human is only probably about 6 feet away. Well, what we want to do is help him practice being alone for very, very short intervals. So after a while, the guardian's sitting here for 10, 15 minutes, he's relaxed, then she gets up and goes in the kitchen, right behind this wall, pours herself a glass of water, comes back and sits down. He probably is going to get up at that point, but hopefully he's not barking. If he is, that means we need to practice a little bit longer of just sitting here with him being calm, or maybe just getting up and walking to get a glass of water that's on that table over there. So we always want to back up a step if he fails or protests or freaks out. That means we push too far beyond what he was prepared for. So maybe you put the drink of water. So now he just gets practice being in the kennel calm while the human gets up, walks over there, but stays in line of sight, but now is moving around the room. But eventually you want to go outside the room into the kitchen, and you get that glass of water and then come back and sit down. And he's completely calm throughout. Then eventually you want to go in the kitchen and get yourself a drink of water and maybe grab a bag of chips or a rice cake or whatever it is. And then eventually you make yourself a sandwich. But the idea is really keep close watch on how long the interval is. I mean, a lot of us, we have smartwatches and smartphones. Maybe just put, leave your phone there, hit the timer on it or the stopwatch and put it in your pocket and walk over there. And if he starts whimpering, pull it out immediately and stop. Okay, that was 28 seconds. So that's too much for him at this stage. So we're going to practice going back to the point where we're going to put him in the kennel. We're going to wait for him to relax, and we're going to while we're seated down, and then we're going to get up and walk. Maybe we walk here, and then walk back here, and then go sit down. So we're not leaving the room, but we're moving around the room until he stays laying down the whole time we're moving around the room. He's calm. The family eats over there, I'm guessing. So I would have him start practicing being in here when you're eating at times. And some of the tricks that I went over, in the above video, like giving him a bully stick, so like you can do some of those things. I'd prefer he does it just like this. Are his eyes closed? So I mean, here, having him sleep in the kennel, he sleeps in the kennel at night, but that's different because he knows everybody's home, but he can't see them. So it's the same sort of principle. We're helping him practice being in the kennel, but not while he's alone, but while he's in the kennel and the door's closed and he's here, until he just has enough practice of being calm. So again, keep those intervals very short until you gradually elongate them, until you can have them in there for up to 15 minutes or 20 minutes or an hour or whatever it is. Only then you would start putting them in here and then leave. And I wouldn't leave the house. I would go maybe in the kitchen or in the hallway over here, just around the corner. And some people will set up a security camera so you can watch the dog. Some people will do just like grab their iPad and put it up on the mantle, facing it, and FaceTime or Skype themselves. And so you can kind of watch and see, what is he doing? Is he in here panting? Is he pacing? Is he drooling? Is he shaking? Those are indications he's uncomfortable. So the idea is when we leave, we want him like this calm and this relaxed. Okay, now before we got to the kennel training video above this one, we spent a lot of time going over rules and structure. One of the questions I asked the guardian was, what is the dog's motivation to listen to her? Didn't really have one. And I asked, what could the dog do to make her happy? And she's like, just snuggle and just be cute. Well, that's not enough for the dog. So if the humans can't tell me what the dog can do to make him happy, I promise you the dog doesn't know. And a lot of dogs then decide, I have to do something to earn my keep. I don't want to just be a freeloader. And they don't ask me to do anything. So what could I do? What am I good at? Maybe I bark at the humans when another dog comes by, or maybe I correct the other dog, or I have to be protective of them, or whatever it is. And he doesn't have a lot of those habits, which is great because a lot of dogs do. But if the dog doesn't see the humans acting like leaders, then he doesn't have much motivation to listen to them or respect them as authority figures. He can love them without respecting them as authority figures. So the way that I flip the leader-follower dynamic is by introducing rules. And they're not arbitrary rules, they're rules that have meaning. So one of the rules would be not allowed on the furniture, because the higher a dog sits, the more rank or social status they have. We can go down to his level and we can cuddle with him as much as we want. We can pet him as much as we want. He just can't come up to this level for at least 66 days, or until he's no longer demand barking and he listens to you when you say things. Remember, the more you say it, the less you mean it. Say it once. If he doesn't do it, then find something else to do. Playing hard to get works great for dogs and as well as for dating. So if he brings you the ball and he's barking at you, tell him to sit. If he sits within 3 seconds, then pick up the ball and throw it for him. If he doesn't sit, lean back, grab your phone, turn the TV on, and show him, I got other things to do. And if he barks at you or protests, ignore him. Remember, anything your dog is doing when you pet it or give it attention is what you're rewarding. And for dogs, good attention and bad attention is pretty much the same thing. So if he's barking, you're like, shut the hell up. It worked. I got her attention. A lot of us train our dogs to be mischievous because it comes and sits in front of us, we ignore it. It lays down in front of us, we ignore it. It lays on its side and we ignore it. But boy, as soon as it starts barking, we correct it. Or it jumps or it chews things. Well, the dog's goal is to get attention. This is another good sign because that's even more movements the dog has to go through to get up. That could not be more content and peaceful. So a lot of us, so I went over petting with a purpose, which I'll talk about in a sec, but let's stick on the rules for a sec. So other rules would be he shouldn't be allowed within 7 feet of a human who's eating. When he's eating, the other dog should not be within 7 feet of him. And when the other dog's eating, he should not be allowed within 7 feet of the dog. That's great practice. So when you go back, he doesn't actually live here, he lives somewhere else. When he goes back at the end of the summer to that location, he has practice of staying away from the other dog, which is naturally what they would like, what they do on their own. When the humans are eating a snack here, he should be within 7 feet. When they're eating at the dinner table, he should not be under the table within 7 feet. Some people put painter's tape down so you know where the line to enforce it is. It shouldn't be in the kitchen when we're preparing food. The human who's feeding him should eat something first where he's not allowed to be in the kitchen. I showed the guardian how to do that off camera. If you want to learn how to do that, go to doggoneproblems.com. Click on the section that's called Dog Training Tips. If you're looking on a laptop, on the right side of the page, there's a search box, type in structured feeding. I have a bunch of videos where I go through how to do that. Actually, most of the subjects that I'm going to talk about, you can search for those things as well. If you're on a phone, when you go to the bottom of the page is where the search box would be, second box from the bottom. So adding structure to mealtime and teaching him that he has to wait for permission to eat food, but there's nothing but air between him and his bowl that's full of food because he's waiting for his human to give him the permission word to go eat. His word is going to, I believe, going to be chow. So every time he takes his first bite of food for 3 months, say the word chow every time he takes a bite, just once. Say the word once. And after a while I say chow, and he knows that means I get to go eat. I can actually feed my dogs from being in a completely different part of the house, and I say butts, butts, butts. They go sit their butts in the corner. I put the food in the bowls, and I leave the room. And then I yell grub, and then I hear the dog's collars hitting the bowl. Then he leaves and comes to my office. I say grub, and that's my next dog's word to eat. So the dogs actually wait for permission. Sometimes I'll forget because one of my dogs goes out, the third dog to eat goes out through this dog door and goes lays and suns himself. I'm in my office, and I run out of water. And I go in the kitchen and get water. It's been 2 hours after feeding. I forgot to give the last dog permission to eat. He's sitting there 10 feet away from his bowl waiting for permission to eat. I reward him with some extra cheese or stuff like that, but it's a wonderful way to develop self-control. When it comes to dogs, you try to train them in the moment, which is the absolute worst time to learn anything in the real world situation. You don't learn to drive on the 405 freeway. You learn to drive in a parking lot. So if you make a mistake, there's no pressure. When it comes to dogs, we try to teach them in the moment, and it's the worst time to do it. So for dogs, helping them practice self-control by waiting for permission to eat their food is a great way to go about developing self-control. He likes to play fetch, and he likes to come and bark at people playing fetch. Well, I would have rules for that. You want to play fetch? First of all, you got to drop the ball. Now, some of the guardians have physically taken the ball away from him, and that proves to him that you're trying to steal my stuff, so I'm not going to drop it. So when he comes over to you with the ball in his mouth, pull out a treat. It helps if you get a little treat pouch like this. This is the mini one from PetSafe. I like it because you can open it up and it stays open, and you can clip it onto your belt or your leggings or whatever. And when you are doing something you don't want, it's really easy to close it and no treats are going to fall out. So it just makes it convenient to have them with you at any time. So when he comes over to you, he's got a ball in his mouth. If this is the dog's mouth, I would pull out a treat and just hold it right here. And he's going to try to eat it with the ball in his mouth, and I just wait. As soon as he drops it, I show no interest in the object, and I pop the treat in his mouth, and I say the word drop. So what I'm saying is when I tell you to drop stuff, I'm going to give you something better than what you have in your mouth, and then you get the original stuff back. That's a really good deal. And the more we do that, eventually the dog come and spit the ball out at you. Basically, remind me to go over the picking him up thing at the end. We'll let him out and I'll show you how to do that. So the idea is just to condition him to drop, and then that way he's just dropping the ball at you. And then when he does that, I would say sit. Next stage is you have to sit. And only if you sit within 3 seconds will I pick it up and throw it. And boy, as soon as he sits down, I pick it up and throw it right away at first. Eventually he can elongate it. But if I say sit and he doesn't sit, or he laid down, which is what I was doing earlier, I lean back on the couch and I prove to him I have other things to do. The world does not revolve around Ollie. Pull out your phone, check an email, watch TV. He might bark and protest and jump up on you. Ignore him. You had your shot. You blew it. Next time I ask you to do something, it'd probably be a good idea for you to do it, and then you'll get the reward that you want. After enough times of doing that, he'll come and start giving you what you want right away, because we're not punishing him, we're not yelling at him, we're not chastising him, but when he does what we want, good things happen. Okay, we also went over petting with a purpose and passive training, which are probably the two easiest things that anybody can do to help their dog respect them and boost their the confidence of the dog at the same time. So if he comes up and nudges me or paws at me or barks at me or jumps at me for attention and I pet it, he's telling me what to do. If I pet him, I'm validating that. So instead, when he comes up and nudges me, I'm going to give him a counter order, tell him to sit one time. If he sits within 3 seconds, I'm going to pet him under his chin, say the word sit, and only the word sit. Not good sit, not Ollie, what a smart dog, just sit. And not sit. They hear inflection, so say it just the same way. So as soon as he sits, pet him under his chin, say sit, and pet him for as much or as little as you want, once to an infinity number of times. If he doesn't sit, like I said, you're on to other things. Petting him under the chin creates that nose-up orientation. Proud dogs have their nose in the air. So after a while, what he's going to realize, if I tell the humans what to do, nothing happens. But if they tell me what to do and I do it, I get hooked up. What will happen is he'll start coming and sitting in front of you to prepay for the attention. Now he's offering you more desired behavior. Like I mentioned earlier, a lot of us, we ignore those things. So when he does that, make sure you recognize and reward him for doing that and say the word sit, put it in context. So I also went over paycheck. Paycheck is, a lot of people don't realize how often they pet their dog without a purpose. So if someone comes in the room and sees I'm petting Ollie while he's standing, they say, paycheck, I have to stop petting. I can't, even if I did it right, I can't argue. I have to stop petting, tell Ollie to sit. When he sits, I pet him on the chin and say, actually, I asked Ollie to sit down. When you opened the door, he stood up and I continued petting, and David said it's allowed. And I'm David, I do say it is allowed. So basically, it's just a gentle way of reminding us, because we won't realize how often we pet without a purpose. If you get in a habit of petting with a purpose, every time you pet your dog, it becomes 3 important things happen. First of all, increase the dog's respect for you as an authority figure, because it's doing something for you as opposed to telling you what to do. Number 2, it boosts the dog's self-esteem and confidence because it's earning those affections instead of getting them for no reason. Number 3, it helps him practice sitting. He was kind of a little, I would say defiant, but he was a little stinker before. He was like, no, I'm going to lay down. I'm not going to sit down. I'm not going to do what you want. Well, then you don't get the reward. So it helps him practice those behaviors. And if you get in a habit of petting with a purpose, every time you pet your dog, it becomes a micro dog training session. It'll take you about 2.5 months to get in a habit of doing it, but if you do every time for the rest of your dog's life, it reinforces a healthy leader-follower dynamic and boosts his confidence. I also went over passive training. Passive training is just waiting for the dog to organically offer you the behavior on its own. It's really a form of operant conditioning. So every time he comes to you, pet him and say, come. Every time he sits, pet him and say sit. Every time he lays down, pet him and say down. Every time he goes in his kennel on his own, say the word palace. Name all his individual toys. I mean, all ropes can be ropes, but if he has one that's a zebra toy, every time he brings it to you, call it Stripey. If he has a little elephant, call it Trump, or whatever it is. Name all these individual toys, so that way you can have a better, more effective vocabulary with him. When he's potty training, or when he's outside going to the potty, say potty, or whatever your word is, when he does it on his own within 3 seconds of him starting. When he gets done, pop a treat in his mouth and say the word potty again. So now you're putting in context, potty, I hear the word potty when I'm pooping or peeing. And then afterwards, within 3 seconds of me finishing, a treat goes in my mouth and I hear the word again. So after a while, I will dare not waste this urine inside. This stuff is valuable. I do it outside in the street and I get paid. That's the whole point. We want the dog to be motivated to want to do what we want. Unfortunately, a lot of trainers these days are balance trainers, which means they punish the dog for the wrong thing and they reward it for the right thing. I just try to create scenarios where the dog can do a couple options. One of them is what I want. When it does what I want, I reward it. If it does anything else, nothing happens. So my option is get what I want or nothing. Well, after a while, I'm going to do what gets me what I want. Now the dog's motivated to do the things that we want them to do. Let me see. I went over the escalating consequences. This is also something you can search on my website. Number one, always hiss to start off. And you can combine them. You might hiss, stand up, and march all at the same time if it's really important. Number one is hiss, one time per incident. And do the hiss, don't say the hiss. A lot of people go, hiss. Well, it doesn't work the same thing as a hissing sound. Number two, stand up abruptly, turn to face the dog, keep it in front of you until the dog stops moving. Then as soon as it stops moving, take 2 steps backwards, left foot, right foot, and pause to put a period at the end of your dog sentence. Then go back to doing what you're doing. But if you were sitting, when you sit down, you lose some authority, you should expect the dog to challenge you again. The third consequence is to march deliberately at the dog until it turns sideways or greater away from you. Stop at that point. Go to the second consequence, pivot until the dog stops moving. Remember, your authority goes whatever direction your belly button is pointing. As soon as the dog stops moving, take a giant step backwards, left foot, right foot, and pause again. And then go back to do what you're doing. The fourth consequence is the leash. Put him on a leash and step on the leash about 3 feet away from where it attaches his collar. Wait for him to sit. Do not tell him to sit. When he sits, if he sits here, take your foot that's on the leash and slide it towards him with the leash to take the tension off of the leash. Wait for him to lay down and do not tell him to lay down as well. As soon as he lays down, very subtly take your foot off the leash. Now he can walk around. The leash is still attached, so it's dangerous to let him do it unsupervised. So make sure he's supervised when he's wandering around. If a couple minutes go by and he misbehaves, you can reapply the consequence by stepping on the leash. If a couple minutes go by, he's good. We detach the leash. It's not a quid pro quo. All we're just saying is if you're very defiant, I warned you, I hissed at you first, I stood up, I marched at you, and you still did it again, so the consequence is you lose all freedom. And once you return to a calm, balanced state of mind, again, on your own, I'm not telling you what to do. When you're calm, freedom gets restored. And a couple minutes go by, you take the leash off, but make sure you always supervise him when he's dragging that leash around. All right, now the last thing that he doesn't like is he doesn't like being picked up. And I think part of this is because he didn't respect the humans in his life as authority figures, but also I think the humans sometimes were disturbing at times that he didn't like it, and he growled. He's not aggressive about it, but he's saying, I don't like it. And just like us, sometimes I might not be in the mood to go to Disneyland. I love going to Disneyland. Well, I haven't been in years, or whatever, go surfing or whatever it is. But sometimes it's just not in the mood. If I'm not in the mood, my friend comes over and says, dude, come on, let's go surfing, man. Let's go surf. Come on, dude. Why are you... You're not listening to what I'm saying. I'm not in the mood to go surfing. And so berating me about it is really going to make me really not want to go surfing. And so for the dog, if the dog communicates that, now we want the dog to want to be picked up, and I'm going to show you how to create that situation right now. But if your dog does growl at you, it's not aggression. It's saying, I disagree with this. Now, if you continue, some dogs do get aggressive. But if you use positive reinforcement, it's really easy to get the dog to want to do what you want. I hate to almost disturb his slumber because we like him being in the kennel that's nice and calm. But we're going to go ahead and open it up, and I'm going to show you how to teach him, or how to have him not mind getting picked up. So we'll do it without the treats first. Oh, well, you're supposed to be growling at this point. Well, he was growling the first time I did it. But Dad and some people in the house kind of pick him up, and he growls like that anyway. So what I want to do is we're going to do kind of a, no, I love that you're going to the kennel. That's not what we want to do. So let's turn you around this way. So I'm luring him. So what I'm going to do is I have the treat in the hand. I haven't released it. I'm just getting him used to my hand here, and then I give him the treat. I didn't pick him up there. Second thing I do is the same sort of thing, but I'm going to take it a little bit further this time. Now, I'm actually going to pick his legs up a little bit before I release the treat. You got my hands a little wet and greasy. Now I pick him up even more, give him the treat, And we'll do one more time, even though you're not growling for any of these, but I just want to demonstrate it. We can pick him up. Make sure you're holding him in a way that's not uncomfortable for him. If he feels like he's going to not want to, he's going to be dropped, he's not going to be trusting of you wanting to do that. But if you do it enough, the dog will have no problems doing wanting to have you pick him up. Now, right now he's squirming. He wants to get down. I'm going to keep him here in my lap just because I want him in this video. But if he does squirm like that, he is communicating, I want to get down. If we ignore what he says and refuse to acknowledge that, the next time he's going to be less likely to let that person pick him up. Since I'm not probably not going to see you again, I can get away with it. But in the future, do listen to what he has to say. Well, is there anything else we want to cover? I think that's pretty much it. Exercise. Remember to use the laser, the fetch, running up and down the stairs. And before you put him in here, when you are going to leave, exercise him. Make sure he gets at least 10 minutes to recover. Take him outside to have a potty break. And then we'll bring him back in here and then throw a couple treats in. But again, let him go in there on his own before you leave. But try to avoid putting him in a kennel and leaving for the short term until you've really repped it a lot and he's pretty relaxed and comfortable and is laying down right away. And one of your indicators is he should just start going and hanging out in here on his own for no apparent reason without any treats. Remember to leave the treats here. New toys should be found in here, and zip tie one of the bully sticks, but do it at the very low back part of the kennel here so that he can only chew on it when he's in the kennel. Again, more positive things are happening. All right, well, this is Ollie, the handsome Corgi. And I'm going to sit you in a position you probably aren't going to like so you can kind of look even cuter. But this is Ollie, and this is Ollie's roadmap to success. Remember, everything you do trains your dog. Only sometimes you mean it. Right, Ollie?